Just maintaining the same thought from last week. Just maintaining that same idea of, and I love the title. I love how I put this title in place, the biblical energy of Satan. Just sticking to that subject because as I was moving on last week, after last Tuesday, and just hearing the different, I guess, thoughts and perspectives from what I talked about, and then my different experiences throughout the week, I began to think about the concept behind being Satan and the Bible's original or natural use of this term not being one that is negative. Satan is a philosophical concept. It's pretty simple. Satan is a philosophical concept. A philosophical concept alluding to an individual properly maintaining themselves and primarily or firstly devotionally and their ministry, themselves and their ministry, along with the message of their ministry through a bit of conflict. When we see Balaam, a false prophet, sorcerer of sorts, professing to be the messenger of the true quote unquote God, stopped in his tracks due to doing something that would completely tarnish the name of that true quote unquote God. And so looking at that illustration and then looking at the different themes within the Bible, there are themes of messengers moving and messengers being withstood against. Things happening and things being withstood against. And so that got me thinking more along the lines of personal, devotional construction. And looking at what that may mean, the Balaam angel scene for us right now. And what I kept thinking about was Paul. And what I have here a quote from Titus 3:14, because I kept thinking about Paul. And let ours also learn to maintain good works for necessary uses, that they be not unfruitful. There is a pruning and a purging process for minds engaged in the Exodus experience. There is a pruning and a purging process for minds engaged in the Exodus experience. The individual going through that Exodus experience where they're leaving behind and they're consciously leaving behind the trio, triad, or trinity type religion and its foundation and its ritual theories, opinions, rites, and such, along with not just the trio, triad, or trinity religion and its foundation leaving behind, but also the code of Moses, the philosophy of the code of Moses, where one is taking their righteousness, their favor, their piety from the movement and from the direction of their bodies, leaving that behind, going into an experience where they are being challenged intellectually and spiritually. They are being challenged inwardly and devotionally on their prior experience, on their prior beliefs. In doing so, developing wisdom from within the scriptures that are plagues to what was formerly understood, to exit into a wilderness experience, a solitary experience for the compilation, for the settling, for the finalization of a land to dwell in. Not literal, this is mental, this is inward. All of that's taking place because of what was said in Exodus to that nation. I will make you an holy nation, a kingdom of priests. All of that was for the purpose of developing a kingdom of priests, or of developing a just priesthood. A just priesthood. So every single mind, every single conversation passing through the Exodus experience, as I've so been talking about for these past weeks, months, it is all for the purpose of developing just priests, just, intelligent, serviceable, empathic, necessary, self sacrificing priests, ministers, messengers. When that energy called Satan is coming up against us, it's not for anything that is negative. It's to check our self, and especially the self that is within us, that is connected to our devotional conversation and our devotional conversation itself, to check that for the direction that it is going in. Because if it specifically is passing through that experience of transition from false religion to true living experience, it is because messenger is being created. It is because message is being created. It is because ministry is being created, and one that would have a ministry and that would have a message and that would be a minister to the mind within the scriptures. They can't go about that in a negative way. They can't go about that in a roundabout way. They can't go about that in a way that would degrade the name at the center of the Bible's mind. And so, thinking about this and the concept behind the Balaam angel experience, it got me thinking about Paul. It got me thinking about one of the things that Paul is always consistently saying, or the author known or written of as Paul. Good works are at the end of the trial. If you jump back to Titus 2, that was Titus 3 that I quoted there. Titus 2, I think I'm just going to read this. In Titus 2, 12 through 14, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lust, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. That was Titus 2 and verse 12. And just summarizing 13 and 14, we ought to do so because the one that has verified and certified this ministry, they are doing this, that our good works should come from such behavior. And good works meaning a good labor particular to our individual person. That can't happen without our individual particular person being challenged, being Sataned. And so the Bible is letting us know from its first instance of this term and of the concept, Satan, the adversary, the one withstanding against. The Bible's letting us know the kind of energy that we need to harness when it comes to our own personal devotional conversation. We need to, as it says in the book of Hebrews, no longer gripe with the arms down and the knees heavy, because if the one that is doing this from above is doing this that we may be able to join into fellowship with their spirit and energy. We have earthly fathers that have done the same thing in correcting us, and we gave them time, and we gave them space, and we gave them, although rage, we gave them consent. Why not do the same thing for the Father of lights, it says in the book of Hebrews? It's that same train of thought. It's that same train of thought that goes into what Balaam and the angel represent, and what the overall scope of the Bible is representing in what it's doing in its process of learning and unlearning, of growth and development. The Bible wants to create ministers. The Bible wants to create live, living, functioning, and healthy ministers, and according to its own thoughts and feelings. That the service of such a minister, that the message of such a minister would be able to edify soberly, edify justly, and edify due to necessity. There are individuals out there that can only be touched by us. I am not going to reach everyone. Not everyone is going to vibe with me. And I've gotten that, and I get that. But there's a great majority that will. And even in those things that that great majority disagree with me in, that great majority agrees with me in so much more. Same with you, same with everybody else. There is a tribe out there that we are to affect. There is a sphere out there that our energy is to heal, is to bless, is to edify. We are to be of use in the time that we have on this planet. We are to be of use. And even in the times that we do not feel useful, in the times that we do not see our use manifesting, we are doing something positive. We are to be useful. We are not simply to just walk around in these bodies and then just call it a day. We are not simply to just live in a way of, contrary to what is within. Like I always like to say, when it comes to life and when it comes to gendering life, still using that term there, I I like to say, do you remember ever saying I do, I quote unquote I do to life? Do you remember? Can you remember? And nobody can. Nobody said I do to this experience. Nobody said I do to this. But there's something within us that channeled the energy of life for our organism. Our organism is only functioning due to the I do that was said by the essence within us. Whatever the essence within us said before meeting our organism, whatever the essence within us agreed to before meeting our organism, it agreed to that. The experience, while we have consciousness due to the essence within us, to the intelligent essence within us, while we're doing what we're doing in this physical body, we can't forget that we never chose this experience. We never had the option to choose this experience. And we only get to choose this experience when a certain level of consciousness, when we allow it. When we allow that certain level of consciousness to do what it's supposed to do, when we allow the experience of the essence within us to have what it's supposed to have, that's when we are able to choose. That's when we are able to choose this experience. And then so choosing this experience, we are then able to revere it. And that's where the Bible kicks in. The Bible gives us material, content, philosophy to choose how to maintain this experience. The Bible gives us the decision. That's what makes the Bible's philosophy really edifying, because there's nothing more human than being able to make a decision. There's nothing more human than being able to make a decision. And at the core of the scriptures is the Bible giving the human being the right to decide for itself its personal and devotional construction. The philosophy that the Bible gives to our human being and to the being of our conversation a right, and the right, its natural right to decide. And so the individual conversation going through the Exodus experience is going through an experience where it will have its right to decide how it will live, how it will look, what it will sound like, who it will impact, and how it will impact whoever it impacts. And it is the journey of the growth and development of the conversation that gives greater material to us in order to be able to answer those questions. And so when I think about Balaam and the angel, and then I think about the consistent theme within the scriptures of an exodus from false religion to a true living experience, when I think about how the Bible goes about that, which is an inward experience, well, then it made me think about Paul and what Paul is always saying about maintaining self, maintaining self, keeping, as he says to the Corinthians, under the body, keeping under the body, that his mind may win the victory for him. Because it is through the victory of the mind that we not only are winners, but the people around us, near and far, are also winners. Because we have to be able to interact with one another mentally, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, and devotionally. We have to be able to speak a language of health. And not everybody's going to speak the same language. Like I was saying, not everybody will accept the language that I approach devotional philosophy from or by. But individuals will, and a great majority will. And hearing that, that is the spark that they may need to get somebody within their own sphere up and moving and seeing the brilliance within themselves and the worth within themselves. So when it comes to being Sataned against, when it comes to being withstood against, whatever life throws into our direction, whether personally or devotionally, it's not to be looked at in a negative context. The Bible does not frame Satan in a negative context. The origin of this character, of how it is defined. This is an energy. This is not a figure with arms, a head, legs, a body, and with a deviant attitude. That's not real. Bible doesn't go into that direction. Maybe years of mixing with the Persian religion does something. Maybe years of mixing with the Babylonian religion does something. Maybe years of mixing with the Assyrian religion does something. But in the original context, that's not where this term Satan is pointing to. This is an energy that the Bible is letting us know has to be harnessed. If in this first instance in the book of Numbers, as I referenced last week, we are seeing its concept, well, then we have to become more aware of how to harness that concept so that we can look at it positively. Because if we don't, we're going to go through this experience and it's going to be very dry and it's going to be very negative. There is a lot of hate, I'll just say, that as I speak to different individuals struggling with their conversation, there is a lot of hate that we can build up for what is within the Bible due to our lacking of understanding what is within it. There is a lot of hate that we can build up from within the Bible due to the misguidance of individuals misleading our and misinforming our conversation. There is a lot of hate that we can take for what is within the Bible due to the ignorance within us. And it's, in a sense, justified hate because we've been misled, we've been hurt, we have been emotionally distraught, and our intellect has been insulted. There is a lot of hate, and it's warranted, it's very warranted. But until we can move past that, until we can, be adults, until we can aim for the process of maturity, we will never actually enter into the process of an educational maturity. So the Bible is pointing in that direction because the Bible does not say that it's wrong to feel angry at it. The Bible actually commends the one angry at the mind within it. You can go through the book of Isaiah, through the book of Jeremiah. There is an acceptance to the mind that is frustrated and angry with the things within the scriptures, but there is praise towards the one that does not let their anger get them so far removed from their initial concern with what is within it. That does not let their frustration remove them from their initial concern within the scriptures. And so that's where we have to be able to check, or should I say, to Satan our conversation. It's not just that life is supposed to work as Sataning us as roadblocks, whether personal or devotional. We also have to Satan ourselves. We have to withstand ourselves. This is the concept and the philosophy behind the term Satan. We have to check ourselves. Every time we're checking ourselves, do this, do that, don't think this, don't think that, think more positive about that. Step away from those feelings. Refrain and be quiet. Every time we have to check ourselves, especially when it comes to something within our body or within our devotional conversation, don't believe that. Don't think that. Research that. Keep an open mind to that. Stay away from that. We are Sataning ourselves. We are Sataning ourselves. And that's the kind of energy the authors of the scriptures would have us harness when it comes to the growth and development that is both personal and devotional. We have to harness everything that represents. Because if we're able to, well, then that's where the next step of maturity takes place. And if we're able to enter into the following steps of that maturity, well, then we will be able to develop a level of consciousness and a character that is fit for fruitful uses, for necessary uses, as it says in Titus 3:14. That's all this is about. Becoming useful in our living experience and useful as pertaining to the underlying name of the living God to benefit another mind and to benefit another conversation. We have a lot of distractions out here. We have a lot of things going on within us. There's a lot to focus on and there's a lot to take us away from us, whether in secular realms or in religious or spiritual realms. There was a lot to take us away from us. Well, the Bible wants us to just cut out that white noise. We don't need that white noise. We are too familiar with that white noise. We can get that noise out and really sit down with us and really learn us to love us. And I'm saying us individually, who we are individually, learning who we are individually, loving us individually. And if we're able to do so with the scriptures, not as a forceful guide, but to the level that is needed, and allowing what is retained to be exercised in the daily life, well, then we will have a consistent energy. We will have a consistent Satan to be a guide on our thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors, and that's absolutely positive. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I'm having a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun saying that we need Satan in our life, having a lot of fun saying that we need to harness the energy of Satan. Having a lot of fun saying and thinking about the fact that Satan is necessary for growth and development, but it is the philosophical or the biblical concept of Satan that I'm talking about, and in its context. Because this energy exists for a very specific reason that we, at the beginning of our journey, and even in the middle and the end, that we may never fully understand, it exists for a reason. And the more that we can grow accustomed to it checking and to us doing the checking also, Sataning our own selves, disciplining our own self, maybe that's a better way to think about it, is disciplining our own selves and allowing what we are going through, and especially from within the scriptures, upon our devotional conscience to discipline also. Well, our experience will become live and living. We will be able to retain material to exercise and to have. And so that's the thought for this week that I would just like to put out there, is that harnessing the energy that the Bible is saying we need to harness due to Satan's existence in our conversation, and the existence of Satan in the context of the original concept that the Bible gives, it's necessary for our personal and devotional growth and development. We need to be able to go through and patiently go through such growth, such education, such maturity, because it all falls back down to our human being. So, and everything, of course, for creation that we go through from now until the end of this week, handling it patiently, knowing that creation is the outcome, but at the same time, understanding that there is an energy and that there is a thought process that we have to handle ourselves with and by, Sataning ourselves, being Satan, or disciplining ourselves, or being disciplined, for the purpose of ensuring that our exodus from what is unnecessary, from what is fraudulent, leads not just into an excellent experience, into a just or true experience, but into an experience where we are being created or fashioned to be messengers of a positive message of the mind within the scriptures, and to have a ministry absolutely giving full light and full health from everything that we have experienced with that mind within the Bible.